Last week we finished the interior of the eyeball. We're gonna do the skin tones today. Again, this is all recorded and on Canvas for you guys to watch. It's from the summer class, so it's same process for the most part. They used a different paper and different colored pencils. Relax, gentlemen. Biggest thing that we need to remember when we're doing colored pencils, we need to work light to dark and work in color families and make sure that we're working heavy-handed enough to have our vivid colors. Okay, vivid colors is very important. If you don't have vivid colors, there's plenty of different ways to make them more vivid. Adding more colors on top or using the colorless blender that I have not given you yet. I'll do that once we start the skin tone. What else? Burnishing, making sure that we're blending our colors, making sure that those top few layers that we're using are lighter color layers. We're pressing down a little bit harder. We're changing the grip on the pencil so that we can really dig into the paper a little bit more. And we're relying heavily on our underdrawing too. So if you had a weaker underdrawing, a very pale underdrawing, it probably doesn't turn out quite as vivid. That's what I'm going to start off with today, just to get back into the groove. Add a little bit more ebony pencil, darken some of my darks around here. Question. Canary. I don't like any other yellows that are in that package. Mm-mm. Is it on the paper? Draw it. Here, just give it to me, Joe. Quick. Recording. Good, that's what you needed to do. Everyone shut up. Look at the reference on Canvas too. This is just for just the basic breakdown of it. And then watch the videos that are on Canvas for coloring this in. All this is going to do is just have everything blocked in for you. If you paid attention to the classes while you're gone, you can use that wonderful knowledge that you attained with the recording. Okay. I'll get you caught up a little quicker than anything else. All that's value. All right. So you should be blocked in. Okay. All right, here we go, guys. For our skin tones, there's a million different ways to do a different skin tone. We're going to keep it simple. We'll keep it tan. If you wanted to draw a black guy, you'll end up using a little bit more of the brown and a purple usually. If you want a darker skinned person too, make sure that your underdrawing is vivid. So like I said, I'm going to start off by bringing out some of those shadows one more time, just adding a little bit of my my ebony back into this. Paying attention to my reference still, even though we're adding color to it and our reference is in black and white, it's still a good idea to have it out for you or for yourselves. Question. Over here, if you need to. It shouldn't be paper white, so once I blend this out, like blend it out that way into your corners, it's not going to show up super vividly. It's going to be there just to maintain consistency. You should have graphite all over the paper. So if you don't have that, just take your rag, heavy-handed, go around, go with the flow of your skin like it's fabric. going with the flow. And if I need to subtract anything, like if I have a brighter spot here, I can do that beforehand. But you still want to have a bit of graphite even on your highlight sides. What's up? Solid black. We're not going to worry about our skulls. Something that we can do that was brought up in the first class is the veins in the eyes. If you guys are going to do any veins, that's perfectly fine. Don't make it look like this guy is having a crippling allergy attack. Veins tend to look like you're compensating for something, like your eye is not very solid. Keep it subtle. Okay, so if you're gonna do veins, pick any one of your reds. Same way we did the cracks in the skulls. Same way we're gonna do our veins. We have broad line, we have a narrow line, pale versus bold. You mix those together. That's gonna give you a decent vein in your eyes. Like I said, don't do too much. Don't be too heavy-handed with it. You want these to be kind of subtle. And I tend to just spin my pencil and rock it back and forth from the point of the pencil down to the back of the pencil. It's usually a little bit bolder as it gets to your tear duct. If it's too bold, you can erase it out. You can etch it out. We'll do some etching in a little bit. Or I like to just bury it with the white. So if I feel like my veins are too bold, and just take my white, go across them, that just buries them underneath whatever collagen jelly thing that our eyes are made of. Don't add too many of them. You can have some emanating from your eyes, from the, no, you do not. All right, skin tones. For my skin tones, I'm going to use pink, peach. So pink, my peach, dark brown, and terracotta. I'll write that out for you. Yeah. Pink, peach, that's okay. Peach, terracotta, and dark brown. You're gonna want these sharpened. I'm also going to use some white. And while you guys are getting those sharpened, I'm going to pass out your colorless blenders. Your colorless blenders are colored pencils without the pigment, really soft wax. If you guys have a lot of the paper showing through, or you feel like your color transparency is not vivid, or your saturation is not vivid, this will help out a lot. Heinz, especially you, or I think you feel like yours is garbage, this pencil will help out, just because where you can see all that pale underneath, this will really darken it out. Okay. Pink, terracotta, peach, and dark brown. All right, so you all have your colorless blenders. You can use these on the interior of the eye. I'm going to use it more on the skin. All right. Same thing, light to dark. Everywhere that I have skin, I have to have colored pencil on. So starting with the pink, I'm going to add a light layer of colored pencil. I'll be a little heavier in my highlight areas, top eyelid on the left side, a little bit of a wrinkle there, underneath my eyelid here. I don't want it to be paper white. Make sure that you have a little bit of a highlight there though. Same thing up here. So if you need to erase anything out, erase it real quick. Take your finger or your rag, blend some of that graphite back on top of it. So starting with my pink, sharp pink, I'm going to start in my highlights a little bit more. And knowing full well that this graphite's going to muddy up some of my colors, that's not going to bother me, okay? We're going to have a lot of chroma in this picture. We're going to have a lot of gray in this picture. It is our civic duty as artists to make sure that we've got enough color on here to combat the gray, okay? So first, I'm going where my highlights are. And then I'm gonna just color over the entire thing. It's gonna be super pale at first. Every mark that I make with my pink is going with the flow of my my skin. So every mark is going up and over my eyelid here. You might start to see some brush strokes, some streaks. That's okay. This is the pink right now. So we're setting a foundation, setting a tone, adding a little bit of pigment and wax to the entire thing. Anywhere that there's graphite, there has to be colored pencil on top. I'm not going super light-handed, but I'm not tripod gripping this. Bury the back of the pencil in your palm. Right. And then use the lights in the studio to make sure that you don't have too much silverish stuff shining through. So that's my pink. Everywhere has a shade of pink on it. Okay, everywhere that I have graphite, everywhere around my eyeballs, I have pink. Under my paper. Peach, dark to, or light to dark. So we go pink, peach. Same thing. Everywhere that I had that pink, I'm going to start being a little bit heavier handed with my peach. Going with the flow of my eyeball. Where I have my highlights, I'm still going through it with the pink or the peach. Yeah, these pencils are very soft, guys. You're going to have to get up and sharpen them. Adding this gray underneath, the graphite underneath really does, it muddies up the colors a bit, but it saves us a ton of time mixing colors. It's a little bit more dark on the screen than it is on my paper. That is what it is. Good old technology. Again, just mixing those colors, merging them, burnishing them. I've got a paper underneath my paper. I prefer working on a desk, but since my desk is black, it really does play around with my camera. Pressing down pretty generously. And you can work in circles too. I'll definitely start to do that with my terracotta and my brown, just to get some skin texture. But this blends really nicely with the pink. Colored pencil paintings, colored pencil drawings, I think are better suited for smaller surfaces. So we're not going to do anything bigger than an 8x10 for our colored pencil drawings this semester. All right, so I got my pink, blended it out with my peach. I can still see transitions from highlights to lowlights. Let's see if it shows up okay. Nope. Doesn't look good at all. This starts to get really muddied up over here, and that's perfectly fine. When we use our terracotta color next, terracotta, orange, those colors are really good for I think just adding a little bit of life to this. Right now it's really, really pale. If you went really heavy handed with your peach, then maybe it's a little less pale. My guy looks like he hasn't seen the sun in a long, long time. So in order for him to get some blood flow into his veins, get some pigment into his skin, I'm going to add some terracotta. I definitely don't want to be too heavy handed with this, unless if you want to do like a Native American kind of red skinned thing. Don't be heavy handed with the terracotta. This will just liven it up a little bit, give them a tan. I'm going through my highlights lightly, staying in my shadows a little bit longer, staying in my midtones a little bit longer. And by a little bit longer, I'm just adding another layer or two. So terracotta, and I'm working in really quick circles. You can work in what's called a scumble too. It's like a scribble. As long as you have enough of that pink and peach underneath, it's not going to show up too vividly as circles. Like right now, it's really vivid as circles. Once we finish the drawing, once we do the brown, once we do the peach back on top to blend it all, once we use our colorless blender to blend it, all these circles will start to look like pores and wrinkled skin. So again, don't be too heavy-handed with your terracotta if you don't want a really red-skinned person. It could be sunburnt. I like using a bit of orange for my skin tones. All I'm doing is repeating the process. It doesn't have to be as thick with your darker colors, your terracottas and your browns. You can add a little bit of purple in this too. The more purple or blue you add, like your indigo blue is a good skin tone. An olive green is a good underpainting for skin tones. A lot of you guys have extra pencils from other colored pencil packs that you bought on your own. Feel free to use those too. So that's terracotta. My dark brown is just going to be for my core shadows, making sure that my core shadows show up a little bit more. So looking back at my reference, I've got some darks right here in my tear duct area, burying my eye a little bit underneath that eyelid. So taking that darker skin tone into the white of the eye and then back up, into the white of the eye and back up. I've got so much colored pencil and wax and pigment on my paper now that this dark brown barely shows up. That's perfect. That's what we want. We don't want it to be super, super dark. We want to be able to blend our skin tones. Again, I'm working in really quick circles, kind of scribbling, paying attention to how hard I'm pressing down. If I lean into it, I'm definitely going to make a really errant mark that I might not like. So I'd rather build it up with my scribbles, my scumble. Like that right there. You do have to experiment. You do have to make changes on the fly. Balls, that's really, really dark. You're telling yourself that it's too dark. Don't press down as hard. Move around. The underpainting, the underdrawing with the pink too, allows us to erase these darker tones. And it really doesn't stain. It's like what we did with the white of the eye here, making sure that those glossiness still, or that glossiness still shows up. Just smooth my transition here from that gray into my peach and pink. You might see some of those circles a little bit more. If I've lost some of my line work, I can come back with my terracotta, my brown, pull out some of those core shadows where that line work is, make sure it doesn't look like a solid outline. That's kind of elementary, weak. Drag some of that shadow down into my eye. The dark brown goes a long way. Bring it up into there, takes a little bit of the edge off the black that we used. But the scumbling especially gives you this texture. Scumbling again is just, it looks stupid here, but that's all I did around here. When you have that underpainting, it really starts to look like texture instead of scribble. Flash. All right. To blend it all together too, it's a good idea to repeat the process, but backwards, kind of like doing a ladder. You go up, light to dark, you're going to go back down, dark to light. If you lost any of your reds, maybe this is a good time to, or any of your terracottas, I'm going to come back and use a little bit of orange to warm it up. Don't use too much orange or it'll start to look very, very Oompa Loompa-ish. Bad tanning bed experience, colored, ugly skin tone. And orange is a very vibrant color, so I'm going to use it sparingly. Don't use too much of it. Maybe stay out of my highlights a little bit more with it. Peach. Scumble with your peach too. So scumbling with my peach. That's going to soften out some of those terracotta and dark brown squiggles. And if it's not doing anything, it's not adding too much value for you, press down a little bit harder. With each layer of wax, you're creating a much more difficult surface to paint on, to draw on, color on, apply colors. Pink's probably not going to do a whole lot. This is where I might come in with my white. I'll start with the pink, see if it does anything, just to brighten it up. It doesn't do a whole lot for me. Maybe I use the white instead. When you're using your white to burnish, your highlights especially, dig into the paper. It ain't gonna bite back. Press down a little harder. Keep an eye on your reference too. Scumbling with your white underneath your eyelid. I'm kind of barreling through this, but that's fine, I guess. You guys have questions, hey, Mr. Ball, the hell did you do here? I will backtrack. I have no problem doing that. On the screen, it's very, very orange. On my paper, it's a lot more peach, a lot softer of a color. I didn't mind the pink. Let me blend a little bit of my highlights down here with the pink. So when I'm burnishing, I'm really pressing down hard again. So I've got enough on there that I really don't need to use my colorless blender, but if I wanted to, if I wanted this to be a little bit smoother with less of a, keep doing that, with less of the texture, my colorless blender will do that for me. A little bit sharp. Like I said, this is just your wax with the with no pigment. Adding a little bit of red into here. This will soften out some of my transitions. It'll soften out some of the texture. It'll bring out a lot of the gray from underneath. I can go in any direction and it shows up just fine. It maintains my transitions. Use these if you want. If you have a really pale skin tone and you don't want to waste too much time adding more layers, this will do a lot of the work for you, especially when you get to that top line of your eyelid. It works out really well. Just brings out some of those shadows going across the top of your eye. Really brings it down. You'll start to see the flowers for mom that we did last week show up a little bit more. Where I need to bring out some of my line work here. My colorless blender will do that perfectly. Heavy-handed. You can outline with this. I think it's always a good idea to color instead of outline. Go along with your contours, along with the flow of your skin. Blend it around, but that makes those lines a hell of a lot darker. Once I do that, it kind of makes me feel like I need to drag some shadows down here a little bit more. You can also add some color back on top too if you need to. If you're etching into the paper at all, come back with some pigment. I'm just using my peach right now. With that colorless blender, there is a really defined wax coating on the entire paper. You might need to really dig in with whatever color you're putting on top of that. All right. If I need to take off any of the edge, if it's too dark in some spots, come back with the white or the pink. Go with the flow Always go with the flow. Whatever contour lines that you drew the first day. All right. I'll probably do this inside of my iris. Drag some of that dark out, boost some contrast. This is something that happens a lot once you add your color. The contrast in your eye kind of goes away. It looks really nice when it's just the white of the eye and the color of your iris and your pupil. Kind of just burnish this all together. Every line that I make goes to the center of my pupil. That's not going to change. It's going to drag people in a little bit more. I think this works a lot better on a hard surface. I need to get a white desk in the next building. Blend it out on my edge too, so that the edge of my iris is a little bit darker. And now that there's so many layers, and I know that this is a little bit more advanced, if you guys have a chance and you want to use a knife, you can do that either tomorrow or Wednesday. You can etch out. So on the bottom of my Escher eye, there's all these basically veins, cracks in the eye. You can take an X-Acto knife or a flathead screwdriver, and since I have so many layers, you can really etch out some of those things. I like using a stylus for scratchboard more than the knife. The knife works really well for hard lines, but if I have broader areas, or if I want to have a skin tone or skin pores, I can stipple with it's called a spade or a round edge. All it does is dig back down to that pink, and it gives me a lot of texture. Texture is really cool to do, really cool to see, really easy to do as well. You can use a paper clip, you can use keys just to etch into your drawing, expose some of those undercolors, and it really just adds another dimension to your work that A, is fun, B, is relatively easy to do. You get to work with a knife too, and that's always fun. And this texture on top of the scumble that we have underneath really ages them. If it looks too old, since you've exposed some of the paper, you can always come back and add some color back on top. So like if I don't think this looks good, if I think I need a brighter highlight right here, I can always add that back in by etching out. But if I don't like it, I can always come back with my peach or my terracotta, soften out some of those edges. What's up? There's knives, or you can use a key or a paper clip. If you want to use one of the styluses, I gotta get them out of the back hold off on that for tomorrow. All right. You can, if you have a pen that is retractable, you can just use the that part of the pen. Anything that you can be abrasive into the paper with, you can use. All right. Tomorrow we will do the eyelashes. I'm going to introduce the Simple Surrealism project, the first one, where you'll do something in the same vein as the eye with surreal imagery, and that's fun. After that, we'll get into colored pencil on tone paper, black paper, do some landscapes with it. You're going to need your markers towards the end of this week. Make sure that you guys have your markers. If you don't, your artwork will not look nearly as good as ours. Those of us who are with marker. At the end, you can just take your eraser, make sure that it's cleaned up. Go back to those highlights that we added the white under. Very important that you clean up your eraser. Go back to those highlights. Erase them out one more time, lightly, so that they show up a lot more vividly. Once the eyelashes are on there, we'll have a more or less a completed drawing. All right, I'm going to stop recording so that this can get posted.